Well, thank you for tuning in this evening for the Fort Bend ISD Board of Trustees Candidate Forum. My name is Christopher Breaux, a partner with Whitley, Penn, and the past chairman of the Fort Bend Chamber of Commerce, and I will be serving as your moderator for this evening. This evening's event is being broadcast via Zoom and the Fort Bend Chamber's Facebook page. If you have any questions for our candidates, please feel free to submit them on the chat feature below. We'll do our best to get as many questions in the time allotted as we roll through. At this time, I'd like to introduce our candidates in the order on the ballot. For Fort Bend ISD Position 1, Jason Burdine, Angie Hannan. For position number 4, Kristin Tosan, and Shirley-Rose Gilliam is not here. We got an email from her. She's at the hospital with her son. A little bit of emergency situation. She said he'll be fine. She might be late zooming in if she can get to us. So we wish the best for her son and hope to see her later. In position 5, running for position 5, Denetta Williams is with us tonight. Reggie Ibrahim is here, and Allison Drew. All right. So there we go. Very good. For the format for tonight's forum, you're going to have 1 minute to present your opening statements. I will go through a series of questioning regarding school finance, your reason for running, legislative concerns surrounding education, COVID-19 surrounding education, and a bunch of other questions. You will have 1 minute to answer that question. Our lovely Juliet Nesmith will be there, and she will have cards ringing a bell for 1 bell is 30 seconds, 2 bells is 5 seconds. Wrap it up. I was teasing with the candidates before. Unlike a debate, we will be muting microphones if necessary. But I know everyone's here to get out. These are, again, short responses, 1 minute in length. This recording of this forum will be on the Chamber's website shortly. So I am going to start with opening statements, and we are starting at the ballot order, in ballot order from the top. We're going to have your opening statement. So I'm going to start out, and I'll just read out. We'll start out with Jason Burdine.
Thank you, Mr. Breaux. I appreciate it. I wanted to thank Carrie Schmidt and Juliet Nesmith, Chris Breaux, and Jim Rice is the educational chair there at the Fort Bend Chamber. So to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm a parent of 2 students, a first and a fourth grader. I'm a native Texan. I am the product of Texas Public Schools. I graduated from Texas A&M University. I'm currently the Fort Bend ISD board president. I've served on behalf of our governor on the Texas School Safety Center board. I was on the board when we won the HEB Excellence in Education and Outstanding School Board Award, along with our 2018 HEB Excellence in Education Outstanding Large District Award. I am the class of 2017 Leadership Chamber Forum. I'm very proud of that. On the board, I currently serve as the construction liaison, as well as on the governance and the audit committee. And I've been a Fort Bend resident for 13 years now. And my day job, my paying job, is a financial advisor. So thank you all for being here this evening. I look forward to the forum. I know we'll be successful.
Thank you, Jason. Angie Hannan.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Angie Hannan, and I'm the mom of a Dulles High School freshman, and I've been married to my very supportive husband, Tom, for almost 30 years, and we've lived here in the Fort Bend ISD area for a little over 26 years. I'm running for the board because I believe it would be an asset to have an educator on the board. I think that perspective is important. And as a 29-year career educator, I've been focused on teaching and improving instruction for diverse learners with diverse abilities. I believe that there is room for improvement in the way we evaluate our programs and the way we solicit stakeholder input. And more than anything, I want to make sure that our kids really see themselves in the curriculum and have access to relevant, challenging work every day when they're in school.
Thank you, ma'am. Position number 4, Kristin Tosan.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks for having us. These types of forums are very important to educate our community. My name is Kristin Tosan. I've served on the board for 6.5 years and lived in Fort Bend for over 24 years with my husband, Shannon, where we have raised our 3 daughters, 2 of whom are now Fort Bend ISD graduates and 1 who's a 9th grader living through COVID in Fort Bend ISD. I am the immediate past president. I have served as secretary. I have spent all 6.5 years on the audit committee. I'm communications liaison, legislative liaison. I serve several roles because I think I'm very passionate about putting my all into something as important as education for all of our students. As many of you know who know me, I'm a fierce advocate for all students of all backgrounds and our staff. And I've led our legislative efforts these past few years, and I look forward to continuing to do that. So I appreciate the time, and I look forward to answering the questions that you guys have.
Thank you, Kristin. Next we go, position number 4, Shirley's not here, so we're going to jump right to position 5, Denetta Williams.
Hello again. Thanks for having me. I am a 20-year resident of Fort Bend County. I am currently raising a 5-year-old grandson who will be attending Parks Elementary once the pandemic is over. I am an activist, an urban education activist, and it is imperative that our underserved students receive all of the resources that our federal government has mandated for them to receive. Also, I am a business owner, which means I am a boss. And I believe the role of the trustee is to supervise the superintendent. Unfortunately, the sitting board, in my opinion, has come up a little short on that. The superintendent is in need of direct supervision, and I am the person who's capable of providing Charles with that much needed supervision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And now, Mr. Reggie Ibrahim.
Chris, thank you so much. I thank the Fort Bend Chamber of Commerce for hosting this. I appreciate it. My name is Reggie Ibrahim. I am actually a citizen of the Fort Bend County for a little over 30 years. I've graduated from Willowridge High School in 1986. I went on to do my bachelor's degree in healthcare administration and a minor in finance. I've done my master's in healthcare administration as well as a master's in business administration, and went on to do my doctorate in management and organizational leadership, all while living in Fort Bend. I'm a graduate of University of Houston. I have 3 kids, Matthew, Andrew, and Hannah. All 3 of them graduated from Fort Bend ISD. Matthew has finished his undergrad and is working on his master's. And he's got 2 babies. He got married a couple years ago, and he's got 2 babies, 2 twins, Gabriella and Sophia, and they will be attending Fort Bend ISD in about 3 years from now. I'm looking forward to that, and I have a vested interest, obviously, in the school district. Not only that, I've been in this community that has done a lot for me over the last 30 years, whether it's my education or my job. So I want to give back to the community, and therefore that is the reason I'm actually running for the Board of Trustees at Fort Bend ISD. I actually am a CEO of Pulse Healthcare System. That's my day job. Obviously, there are some issues that I feel very strongly about, and hopefully I'll get to speak about that shortly. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we go to Allison Drew for her opening statement.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chamber, for having this event. I want to take a little different tack. You know, I heard something last week that really inspired me, and someone said it begins with the children. And it really touched me because, you know, it's a true life story for me. I am what they say is the impossible. I was ID'd as GT in the 2nd grade. I was skipped a grade. I went to a GT and CTE high school, so I could work heavy machinery. I started college at 16. I majored in math. I currently work as what we call an enterprise data architect, which is just fancy lingo for solve enterprise level problems with data and math. And I'm also, when I'm not doing that, a psychiatric nurse, which means that I can have some really difficult conversations respectively. I speak 5 languages, mainly because I'm nosy, but also because I love to be a part of every conversation. Recently, I was identified as an up-and-coming leader at the Texas state level by TASB. And so I am on Leadership TASB, and I hope to be a 2021 graduate. Personally, I've grown up around education. My grandmother was an educator at university level. My father was an education advocate in our community. My brother is a professor at university. And my husband is a current director of fine arts. I have a set of tools that are in high school within this school system. Education has just always been an integral part of my life. And in under a minute, I've rattled off just some of the things that I've been able to accomplish in this, in an unexpired term of 1 year. So thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you. So with that, we're going to jump into the questions. And I'm going to combine the first couple of questions because I think a lot of you have talked about it here. But the first 2 questions to combine here look like this. Why do you want to be a trustee, which is a voluntary job? And it's a voluntary job. And I want to follow that up, which how much time are you willing to spend a week volunteering as a school board trustee? I'm going to go back through the order in reverse. Allison Drew, we'll start with you.
So I'm sorry. So the official combined question was how much time? What was the official combined question?
The official combined question is, why do you want to be a trustee, a voluntary service job, which a lot of you have already answered. But on top of that, how much are you willing to spend per week volunteering as a school board trustee?
Well, yes. So as a school board trustee, you know, that volume, especially during COVID, has been enormous. I literally was working a call as so I think that anyone is not open to, you know, having that be a moving scale might not be ready to be a school board trustee. It takes an unsurmountable amount of hours. We put in a lot of time, you know, behind the scenes at the board meetings, getting up to speed, speaking with community members. There's just a vast number of hours that are put in. I can say that every waking minute that I can put towards this, I do put towards this. Why I wanted to be a school board member from the beginning is I learned really early on in life, you know, what being a public servant was about. My father was a great example of how to be a leader in education, on how to close gaps, on how to speak with the community and educate the community, on how to bring about change and bring about change based upon inclusion. So listening to that community, bringing their information forward, and really working a plan with that community to create transparency. And so that is my goal. That is what I do as a trustee. I speak to all community members. Plenty of people probably listening know that they call me at all times of the night, and we can talk about things, because truly as a trustee, you are the voice of the community. And if you're not bringing forward the voice of the community, if you preconceived answers, you are not serving in your role as a trustee. This is about community, community voice, and us being able to vocalize that and move towards a solution for all.
Thank you, Allison. Reggie, same question.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So as I mentioned in my opening speech, I'm very passionate about the community because the community has done a lot for me, and I'd want to give back. And as you mentioned, it is a non-paying job. It's voluntary. So I'm totally willing and able to do that. The reason I'm running as for the board of trustees is because I know that I can make a difference. I have the leadership qualities. I've worked in every major hospital in Houston in an executive role. As I mentioned, I am currently the CEO of Pulse Healthcare System. And I feel very strongly about the quality of the education, the teacher retention, the overcrowding of the schools in our community. Mental health awareness is another thing that I feel strongly about. And last but not least, I'd like to be a voice for the community. That's been lacking over the last several years. I've got a lot of friends and family members and people that I work with that live in the community, and they've expressed many times over coffee or whatever it is that how Fort Bend ISD has failed the community in terms of listening to the voice of what they have to say, and that's mainly what I'm running for. And then obviously, I've sat on boards. I currently sit on the Missouri City TIRZ board, and I also sit on the Parks and Recreation board. And I sit on our board at the Pulse Healthcare System, and I'm actually also a adjunct faculty at U of H, teaching in their master's program. So I bring a lot of value in terms of leadership and in different perspectives, especially being in the healthcare for all the academies that we have started at the Fort Bend ISD. Continue that and to qualify it with the healthcare realm. I can definitely help that in that area. So there you go. That's the reason.
All right. Thank you, Reggie. We have not been able to hear the bells moving forward.
I didn't hear it.
I'm not hearing bells, which is unusual.
Sorry about that.
No,
I may have gone over. I'm not
You're all
sure.
doing fine. You're all doing fine. It was just a little setup here. So we got Juliet back on here to show us the colors. So she's going to show us flashes a yellow card and a red card. Okay, good. I was thinking, boy, we're doing great on time. Okay. All right. So here we go. So I'm going to jump, Denetta, I'm going to jump to you now. Why do you want to be a trustee, a voluntary service job, and how much time are you willing to put in a week on it?
Okay, as many of you are aware, I'm a full-time activist. So working for free is not anything new to me. You see the mass, I've been dealing with this for 7 weeks now, and I am still out there fighting every day for the entire family. So me sitting on the board is something I do every day already. And my intent was not to sit on the board. I originally filed to run for a commissioner in Precinct 1. I was okay with Allison Drew being there. However, when I filed complaints against the superintendent and I didn't get any response from the board, and I especially expected to hear something from Ms. Drew as it relates to Charles' willful disregard for Title I students, that led me to say, let's take it up a notch. And this is why I'm here today. I'm going to take it up a notch. Win, lose, or draw, I expect Alisson to come out fighting and be a person who's going to fight for our urban youth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Hey, Chris, really quickly, I'm sorry. And as far as time commitment, I am willing to give as much time that's necessary to make a change within the Fort Bend district.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we're going to go to Kristin Tosan.
Thanks, Chris. So one day I sat down and calculated the number of hours that I spend serving on the board, and I average about 40 hours a week. So it's a full-time job for me. I'm an attorney by profession, and I stopped practicing law as soon as I got elected to the board because I'm very passionate about serving on the board and about seeing to it that children get educated. So I'm obviously willing to put in the time, obviously know that it's a volunteer position. Thankfully, I have an amazingly supportive husband and children and family. And I have been, I've had the benefit of being able to see firsthand the tangible solutions to the problems that we have and how we've been able to help students. And so I'm passionate about continuing that work. And that's why I'm asking to stay on the board and have your support to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Angie, same question.
Okay, I'm going to say I'm not sure that I can put a number on it, but what I will say as far as time is I know that education is what makes our world go round. And only second to that is really volunteering. And I think volunteerism in our country and in our community is very important. And as an advocate, I work very many hours a week already on several boards, and I believe that advocating and helping parents and our community members know how to better support their own children is important. And in my career, I own my own business as a consultant, and I'm very fortunate that I have a flexible schedule. And sometimes, I would say more often than not, volunteer more hours than I'm actually paid. And so I understand the workload and I'm glad to contribute my time to help the kids in Fort Bend ISD.
Thank you, ma'am. Jason. Unmute.
Sorry about that.
No.
First off, to answer the first part of your question about the hours that are spent. So without my wife and kids' support, it would be impossible. This has really become a way of life. This is something that if you're serious about and you care about it, it requires a great deal of time. It was hard as a volunteer when I started with the board you have to put all that you're doing and all that you're volunteering aside, and you really have to focus on the task at hand, which is being a Fort Bend ISD Board of Trustees. All of us hold each other, we all hold each other to a very high standard, and all of us have our own strengths and we work in our own way. So as Kristin said, 30 to 40 hours a week would be very realistic. And it's not Monday through Friday, it's Sunday to Sunday. And oftentimes I'm walking the dog at 10 o'clock at night talking to my fellow trustees. So as far as why, as a board member for more than 6 years, holding numerous leadership roles within the board, I'm extremely motivated to continue the work that we began, starting with the profile of a graduate, which you all know focuses on all Fort Bend ISD students and is the compass for our work as a district when it comes to systems for alignment and accountability. All of the work that we have done has been to create this organization that provides access and equity to all Fort Bend ISD students so that kids win, something that Mrs. Allison Drew started off with, and she's exactly correct. It's all about the kids. That's it. Thank you.
Let me stop you on time there, and I'm going to take it back to Ms. Allison Drew as we get to our next question. With the upcoming legislative session, what do you want our representatives to prioritize as it comes to educational issues? What do you want them to do for us in Austin? Allison.
Oh, wow. There's so much. Man, okay, unfair. I'm using up my minutes just going through the list. So as we start, one of the things that we are really seeing with COVID are gaps, gaps and closing those gaps in equity. There's huge disparity in the communities, and there's just so much that COVID is bringing to the forefront. Certainly financing education, we have our lost students that are, we really are passionate about finding, bringing back, and getting re-engaged. Assessment, being able to assess those gaps, being able to close those gaps and having ways to do that. There's just so much that we need to address right now from the top level, most of all, educating our students to the best of our abilities and finding kids that, and making sure that they're growing in a manner that they will be successful.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Reggie, upcoming legislative session, what do you want our guys and our guys and gals, representatives in Austin to prioritize when it comes to educational issues?
Well, obviously, the first and foremost is the situation that we're in with the pandemic and the COVID situation. They have dropped the ball on that in terms of the PPEs and sanitizers and so forth. There's been a shortage of that, and that's an immediate need, and it continues to be a need. The reason I say that is because, I have my wife who works for Fort Bend Independent School District of the Extended Aid Program, and she is having to spend her own money to buy PPEs for masks and sanitizers. And I mean, she doesn't mind because she's very passionate about the kids that she takes care of and the staff. But it's just sort of unfair for all the folks that are doing that on their own, spending their own money to do that. And that's really, really unfair. And second, it's the funding for our students, whether it be for the resources on the IT side, the computers that are needed, and then with this online study platform that we've created, obviously due to COVID. And I think that's going to be the future of education in this country, at least on a hybrid level. And then obviously the mental health issues initiative is a big point of contention for me. And then well, we'll add some more as we go along.
All right, thank you, Reggie. Denetta.
The legislative needs that I see is, first of all, I would like to see a bill passed that would mandate municipalities to assist Title I students, to make it mandatory, not optional, to assist Title I students once they reach the threshold of at least 40%. Right now, the federal government mandates at 75%. Hence, that's why all of our kids are failing in Title I schools, because the district is not intervening at an earlier time. We have Hightower, Bush High School, Lake Olympia High School at 69% of free and reduced lunch. However, the Board of Trustees, nor Charles Dupree, is doing anything to go over there and assist those kids. Even when the federal government states, once they get to 75, go and help them. Marshall reached 75%. Charles Dupree didn't help. I filed a formal complaint. I didn't hear from the board. And I know that Jason and Kristin are both advocates for underserved kids, but I expected to hear from my opponent, Allison Drew and Addie. No one cared, no one done anything. So I need for them to mandate that municipalities help assist Title I students at 40%.
Thank you, ma'am. Next we have Kristin Tosan.
Thanks, Chris. So as legislative liaison for the board, I've already started working on our legislative priorities. And what we know this session is that our legislators are not going to get a lot of time together, and they're going to have to be hyper-focused on the budget and on funding. COVID has sort of shot us out of a cannon, so to speak, when it comes to having to move quickly on how we do education. And I do believe that the way we do education in the future is going to be different. So our top 3 priorities are going to be, number 1, we need you to hold us harmless for the lower enrollment. So that's going to be a funding issue. Number 2, flexible funding so that we can start funding kids who are maybe online learning, or kids who decide to remain home, and we can support them. We're going to need more flexibility and more local control in how we are able to spend that funding, instead of being shoved, all 1,200 school districts being shoved in a box. We're going to also need more flexibility in how we spend our bond funds so that we can build out infrastructure to support this new way of learning.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Let's move on to Angie. What would you have the folks in Austin do? What do you want?
All right, I'm going to keep the folks in Austin busy. Are you ready? Okay, so clearly our state's going to have to look at funding due to implications financially from COVID. But in addition to that, I think that COVID has shown such a bright spotlight on the digital divide. And I've been in communication with Colkhurst, asking her what is that going to be on the legislative agenda, and she said yes, because even though we get kids laptops, they still may not have a printer. They've got other problems that we need to address. I think the legislature needs to look at the top 10% rule for graduates. It was written in 1997, and our kids are so much more than a grade point average. And finally, I would love for them to look at the GT allotment that they removed with House Bill 3. And look at some ways that we could assure that that funding is back in place for those kids.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Jason.
Can you hear me okay?
Gotcha.
All right, well, first off, I'd like to start with, and this is going to sound somewhat similar to Mrs. Tosan, because we've been working on what this may look like for our district. So when I think about this, I just don't think about the narrow Fort Bend ISD. I really think about public education in Texas as a whole. We have 5 million kids in the state of Texas that need to be served and they need to be represented. And so we take that very seriously in Fort Bend ISD. So that's part of the thought process and the lens that we look through. So local control is extremely important. We all know that funding is going to be an issue. We need to make sure that the 87th legislative session lives up to the promises made with the passage of House Bill 3. It's extremely important so we can know what our budget looks like. We need to make sure that the state gives districts flexibility in funding so that we can concurrently run 2 forms of schooling with remote learning and in-person instruction. And we need statewide access to broadband and internet access for both rural and urban settings across the entire state. And we need the flexibility to spend our bond funds in different ways. The way the law was originally set on the way you can spend bond funds is not really up to date with the expenses and how we do education in today's time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, team, we've gone through a couple rounds of questions now. We're gonna start getting tighter on your answer time frame. So you guys stick with me, work with me. I'm gonna, Alisson, I'm gonna jump back to you here. What has the district done well over the last year, and what has the district done poorly that you would change?
Well, certainly what the district has done well over this last year, I can say, is remain flexible to the ever-changing, pandemic. We've really worked really hard to incorporate community input and to really refine strategies that were, put in place with moving targets, with delayed information from, TEA, UIL, things of that nature. So I really think that what we've done well is really try to make the constituents our concern and to vocalize and make changes and refinements quickly. What we can work on is definitely change management and just how we're disseminating information and how quickly we're getting information out for the out with changes that have come down the pike. I think that ultimately this is something that none of us have a guidebook for, so it's been a challenge to navigate the waters.
Thank you, ma'am. Reggie, same question. What has the district done well, and what has it done poorly that you'd like to change? And you're muted. Reggie, you're muted. You're muted. Sorry.
Sorry about that.
The phrase for 2020, you're muted.
I know, gosh, now I only have 40 seconds left. As far as things that the district has done well, I mean, I'm going to have to step back and say it's just kind of done either at par or subpar in all the things that they've have done so far. Over the last few years, it's been kind of subpar. For the things that the district has not done well, I mean, I can list a handful of things, but administration has done very poorly in terms of leadership. That's been a major concern of our citizens. The folks in the community, talk to them on a regular basis, whether it's friends or neighbors and other teachers and students and so forth. I mean, obviously I've had a fair share of family members that have attended Fort Bend Independent School Districts, and they've shared their frustration with the level of the commitment that the administration has. So that's basically it's a major concern of mine. And then community outreach. I mean, they've done very poorly in terms of actually listening to the community members and having a voice for them. And that's the main reason. One of the main reasons I'm getting on the board is to be that voice for the community.
Thank you, Reggie. Thank you, Reggie. Denetta, what has the district done well over the last year?
Oh my, I'm gonna have to be honest. The district, it's stagnant. The district has not performed up to par, and I believe it starts at the top. The superintendent, Charles Capri, must go. He is not trustworthy. He's not speaking straightforward with the public. And I'm sorry, but our board has not held his feet to the fire. I have several F&G complaints, formal complaints before the board. They've either elected to look the other way or they are currently sitting there. My thing is this, Jason talks about Title I and helping Title I students. We can't say that we want to help Title I students when I give you guys a complaint that he's not in compliance with federal law and no one says nothing. Charles Dupree has violated state, local, and federal law and his employment contract, and everybody is acting as if it didn't happen. It happened, Allison, and we need some action. Thank you.
Right, thank
So
you.
it hasn't done anything well.
Kristin Tosan, what has the district done well this past year?
So I'm going to be honest, after 6.5 years of working on this board, almost 40 hours a week, I could take exception to that. 0 failing schools, reduced taxes 2 out of the last 4 years, increased the special ed students we serve from 6.5% to 10%, expanded secondary learning opportunities, including 2 PTECs, early college, high school, and lots of VOTEC opportunities. The first of its kind early literacy center that has increased reading and math in all of our pre-K students in our Title I feeding patterns. First of its kind early intervention academy. First of its kind 7 mental health centers in Fort Bend ISD. We're one of the first in Texas to do that. Over 149 teachers and 140 paraprofessionals and over $14 million spent to hire those. Most community engagement in the history of Fort Bend ISD. Is there more to be done? Absolutely. Continuous improvement has got to be part of this board, but that does not mean that this district has not moved forward exponentially, in fact. So we do need to do better with communication. We do need to do better with change management, and we do need to do better with transparency.
Thank you, ma'am. Angie, what has the, I get this right, what has the district done well over the last year, and what has the district done poorly that you would change?
Okay, I thought you had asked over the last year, so I was trying to be concise. So I'm going to say that anyone who's actually followed the TEA COVID documents closely and their mandates to the school district, you will know that Fort Bend is actually following the guidance of the TEA, and TEA has kicked the ball in different directions. So I'm going to say that the district has, I think, done what TEA is asking them to do. Now, I do believe that we need some improvement in the area of clear, concise, and timely communication over the last year. I think we're going to also need some work with figuring out how to measure adequate yearly progress in a way that is appropriate for our kids. But I kind of think that's where we are right now. I know they're overwhelmed, but communication is also very overwhelming, and is for kids and for parents and for staff.
Thank you, ma'am. Jason, what has the district done well over the last year, and what has the district done poorly that you would change?
Thank you, Mr. Breaux. I'm gonna change it up a little bit. Now I'm gonna start with the latter. This is always a moving target for us, and everyone, most of have already touched on this, but something that we're always looking to improve on is our communication and engagement with our students that we have lost during the COVID-19 pandemic. Our students have faced many challenges that we could not have ever anticipated. So we have to learn how to innovate and engage and seek out and find solutions to support all of our students. And so really it comes down to community engagement, and we could also be better communicators. Something that we've done extremely well back in the spring, we were able to pivot on a dime from full in-person learning to remote learning. We are one of the fastest districts in the state to fully move to remote learning in less than 2 weeks. We got a stellar curriculum audit report this year, which was one of the biggest wins for our board. We had a financial star rating reporting that was also a stellar report. We've developed robust online curriculum this fall that I'm extremely proud of. Sometimes it may be a little too robust. We've expanded our schools of choice and on our options for our students. As Mrs. Tosan said, we've reduced our taxes, and we have 0 failing schools. And for a district this diverse, that is something to be extremely proud of. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Let's jump down here, but Miss Drew, Allison, we're gonna come back to you now. Remembered you were there. Please explain your current understanding how school districts are funded and what percentage of a school district's budget is comprised of salaries and benefits. And I forgot to warn people there'd be math, but so the question is, let me explain it because that's kind of a long question there. How are schools funded, and what percentage of the school district's budget is composed of salaries and benefits?
Well, the school districts are funded in a couple of ways. So, tax dollars, state funding, so on and so forth. The percentage is 85% of salaries. And I'm not sure how much longer that answer should be.
Okay, well, I'll jump, thank you.
So local and state taxes and the 85% is really where I was going with that.
Okay. Reggie, how are schools funded?
So obviously the schools are funded in a couple of different ways from federally and state level in terms of student enrollment and so forth. As far as the actual percentage of what percentage of the funding is utilized for salaries, I think that was the second question. I would think, I'm not exactly sure, but I would think about 70 to 75% of that would be used for salaries in the school district, and then you're left with 25 to 30% for all the other things that we should do. So just by understanding that, we know that we're not adequately funded to carry on all the things that the school district should with the level or the amount of students that we have in our districts.
Okay. Denetta, how are schools funded, and what is a percentage? What percentage of the school district's budget is comprised of salaries and benefits?
With disclosure, I have no idea about what percentage is going to salary, so I'm gonna go out on the limb and say 60. As it relates to how schools are funded, the state provides the district with money. Our federal government, which is the Title I funds, that has been willfully kept from our urban schools. Federal fundings are a big part of it. Our local property taxes, which are not being properly collected because we're still engaging in the good old boy system where every school district seems to use the same tax collector. As a real estate broker, can look online right now and go to the next board meeting, and I can give President Burdine a stack of people who are delinquent on their property taxes for the last 5-10 years. That one tax firm cannot go and collect all those taxes. So we need to think about that. Let's go get our money, and then we wouldn't be complaining. Unless when we get those federal dollars to fund the school, give it to those students who the federal government gave it to you to assist. Thank you.
Ma'am. Kristin.
So I'm gonna take a little bit. So it's 85%. I wish we had 25 to 35% to use for programming, but it's 85% salary and benefits, which leaves 15% for everything else that we do. And I do a lot of work around school funding, and I've done a lot of advocacy around school funding, and 1 minute is not nearly long enough to answer this, but federal dollars only come in for specific programming like special education and Title I, like Denetta's been talking about. The rest of it is local property taxes and some state taxes, but now the local property taxes are funding over 50%, close to 60%, which is why the tax burden is placed so much on our local taxpayers. But one thing I would like for everyone to remember is that we just last month lowered the tax rate again by 3 pennies. And the reason we are able to do that is because we are managing our bond program extremely well. We've saved over $11 million in managing that program. And we always keep a fund balance for rainy days such as COVID. So we're working really hard to use your pennies wisely.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Angie, it's your math question now.
It's my math question now. Okay, well, thank you very much. And so I am going to be the first person that will always say, I do not know the answer when I do not know the answer, but I will be the first person to find out the gospel for you. I do not know the exact percentage of salary and benefits. I do know that benefits are a huge, huge cost to the school district, one of the biggest costs. And so as far as public education funding, and so if anyone has read House Bill 3 and has looked at how funding has changed, funding for students changed quite a bit in the allotments. I do also understand sometimes people don't understand their property tax goes up and they think it's the school district, but it's actually because the appraiser district has raised their taxes, and then incrementally your school district tax also it looks larger because of that. So I would just encourage folks, House Bill 3 has actually done some great things on how our individual students are funded from different populations as well as transportation. Anyway, I could talk about this a little more, but my time's up.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Breaux. So once again, this is a very, there's a lot here in this question. So I just want to make the point and remind everyone that we are in the people business. That's what we do, is people. So as stated before, 85% are salaries and benefits. The 15 that's left, only 2% are the central administration costs. So when people say that we have way more administrators than we do teachers and other support staff, that's not true. We've managed debt extremely well, which ended up saving us millions of dollars, as Mrs. Tosan has stated. We do have a rainy day fund, so to speak. We've lowered our taxes 3 cents. State funding looks like federal, state, and local. Federal only allows about 8% of the total funds that we receive. The majority of it comes from local taxes. And so anyway, I can keep going on, and that's in my question or answer, sir.
Okay, great. Well, I'm gonna turn this back around. I'm gonna go back down because I've been picking on Allison Drew, giving her the first question every time. So I'm gonna put it in reverse right now. Jason, we're gonna start with you. What's your opinion on the STAR test exams and the need for standardized testing in public schools?
So in Fort Bend ISD, we're not afraid of accountability. We understand that accountability is important. We also, you have to understand that one test taken on one day is no way to grade your school system. You know, we have a grading system that's A through F, and that's extremely challenging for students and staff who have to show up and go to school every day at an F school. Lots of schools that have a poor rating are because they have a very high mobility rate, which means we have students that come in and out of the schools from different districts and or maybe not school at all. And so I think that there's a better way that we could do accountability. I understand, once again, we have to have that, but I do not believe we should teach to the test. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Angie, I'm going to go to you. What's your opinion on this? Okay, you got to go.
Yep, I'm with you. So I am I'm actually not opposed to STAR. I am opposed to teachers teaching to the test, and the reason is because before the Elementary and Secondary Education Act was reenacted with No Child Left Behind, and then again recently with ESSA, there were children like ESL children that went completely unnoticed because they weren't included in state accountability, and now they are, and we pay more attention to those groups. So I think data is important. I do think that there is more to looking at kids than STAR, and that's why I think program evaluation is so important. And where one of the candidates said they had a stellar program audit, I think that is to be judged by people who read it with a critical eye. I think that is how we look at our kids, with multiple and varied instruments, but we look at them through a program audit so that we can actually understand how they're doing.
Thank you, ma'am. Kristin, to you.
So actually, Fort Bend ISD is doing something about this because we have a local accountability system that we are in the process of creating so that we can look outside of just STAR and make sure that we are looking at the bigger picture. I'm not a fan of STAR because I don't like anything that's a one size fits all. I have a daughter with a disability. I have a daughter who's GT, and STAR does not appropriately assess them. And I really do think it discriminates against kids who don't have the same support systems and don't have maybe all the same knowledge or ability to have the same knowledge as other kids. So we are not afraid of accountability. We want to be held accountable, and we know that the state requires us to look at STAR, which is why we have put programs in place to ensure that our students can do well on STAR, and that's why we have 0 failing schools. We have really, really pushed towards student achievement, and it's a priority of this board. But our local accountability system is going to look outside of STAR and start looking at other things that are important to student education and development, including our profile of a graduate, including lots of other good things that we have going on in school.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Denetta, what is your opinion on the STAR test exams and the need for standardized testing in public schools?
I will honestly say, as a parent who placed my daughter into the best private schools out in Sugar Land, I didn't personally have a problem with STAR. However, as an advocate for underserved students, I just don't feel like the parental support is there. The support is not there on the school level. So therefore, I feel like it's emphasis placed on that STAR test that is just placing an undue burden on for too many students. So therefore, I would suggest that we really need to do away with the STAR test because it is unfair to disadvantage special education students. But you know, the haves, we can handle it. The have-nots can handle being judged in such a manner.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Reggie, what do you think about the STAR test?
So the standardized testing, in my opinion, is I don't think it's a good measurement for how well the students are doing, because what happens is then like Angie said, the teachers are teaching to the standardized testing, and we settle for mediocrity, and it becomes so average, so to speak. And so we want our kids to learn way beyond what they're should be or capable of doing. And I know they can do that. So when you do the standardized testing, we're kind of putting a cover, so to speak, on the testing mechanism, because I think that the scoring is not done well. So I would suggest that if you had the standardized testing, to have an outside agency come in and measure the actual testing process and how the results are being followed.
Okay, thank you, sir. Allison, what do you think about STAR test?
Well, I think STAR. I'm not a fan of the STAR test. I definitely think that a lot of the issue with the STAR test is that it's not a mechanism for really discerning growth of a student. As my fellow trustees have said, that we have started looking into a system where we really have created our own local accountability system in order to really discern growth of a student. I think that the STAR test really aligns more with discerning the socioeconomic status of a student, and that's not what we really want to be looking at in order to make our students successful. As someone that's in GT, it doesn't help with our GT identification. It just, in so many ways, does not meet all students' needs, and it does not help us grow them to their best potential and put them on the pathways that are really aligned for their success as a student.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Denetta, to you, in your opinion, what are the top 3 priorities to consider in recruiting and retaining quality teachers?
I missed the first part of your question. Say that one more time for me.
In your opinion, what are the top 3 priorities to consider in recruiting and retaining quality teachers?
In my opinion, the qualities that I would look for is dedication. I would look for someone who is dedicated to the profession. I would also look for diversity. I would also look for that particular teacher to be educated above a bachelor level. In my opinion, I feel like we need a more educated workforce in our public school system. Far too many schools are being taught by folk without a master level certification. These teachers have the bachelor degree, only the basic. They're not looking to go further, and they're not motivating our students to go further. So I'm going to look for a more educated workforce when I go out to look for teachers.
Okay, thank you. Reggie, same question. What are your top 3 priorities considered in recruiting and retaining quality teachers?
So recruiting, so I think I understood this question a little differently than Denetta did. So I would think that the pay rate of what the compensation is for the teachers is very important compared to other school districts in our area. We're the lowest paid. And in terms of, well, I can't say we're the lowest paid, but not comparable. But if we look at the 2020-21, even the cost of living increase has not been approved. So I know I have a problem with that. And then the resources, providing them adequate resources to be successful in teaching and getting their point across is important. Then also work requirements. I think the teachers are given too much tasks. And there's not enough time for them to do it. And so they are required to do so much. So if they just focus on a limited amount of hours that they're supposed to work and focus on more on the effectiveness and the quality of what they're teaching, I think that'll go far in terms of retention.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, back in position 5, Allison, what are your top 3 priorities to consider in recruiting and retaining quality teachers?
Well, definitely, we do have a very competitive salary structure, and that's important to gain teachers, qualified candidates, creating a culture which gives them pathways for professional learning and growth. There's maybe more than 3, but within that culture is really incorporating a teacher voice and really allowing them to, in some way, shape what that learning environment for those students look like, what it looks like at the district level as well as the classroom level. So providing them the ability to have a voice, to have some sort of professional development and pathways for growth, competitive salaries, and just having a wonderful culture for retention.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Angie, same question. What are the top 3 priorities to consider in recruiting and retaining quality teachers?
Okay, first of all, I think we have to work on the culture that surrounds how we treat our teachers, and I think they really have to be more involved in the decision-making process, especially when it impacts their workload and their workday. We keep adding things, but their days don't get any longer. I really think that things like their professional learning communities where they meet, that needs to be teacher-driven. I think that when we look at a competitive first-year salary, that's great, but then when we look at 25 years later at that teacher and her salary has only increased by $12,500, I think we have to say we have to look at pay for teachers. They're underpaid and overworked. I have a very long list because I had been asked this question by someone else. It's an important question to think about, and overall professional development, salary, decision making. There's a lot that goes into answering this question.
Well, thank you, ma'am. Jason.
Thank you very much. Someone must have been reading my push card here because one of my priorities is to recruit and retain highly qualified teachers. And someone who's been in the classroom before firsthand, I understand the importance of this. We have to do a better job of taking care of our teachers as they deserve the best. Better healthcare services that are provided at the state level so that the burden doesn't fall on the local taxpayer or the local school district. We need to elevate the profession by building a culture that treats and respects teachers as heroes and professionals that are for the work that they do every day. Invest in a grow your own model from middle school through college with programs such as Future Teachers of Texas, by modifying the program to be a local program that provides students with clinical residency experience, meaning students actually get to go to middle and high school and get real-time on-the-job experience in classrooms around our district, so it can prepare them for the teacher profession. When the partner when they partner with corporations or foundations or universities, provide scholarships. We need to tap into that. Ongoing professional development, commitment letters, ensuring that once they complete their State Board of Education certification, that we've got a job for them in Fort Bend ISD.
All right, thank you,
There's
sir.
a lot there.
There is. Kristin?
So salaries are very important, and we are actually one of the highest paying districts if you come to our board meetings and watch that in the area. And we gave our teachers a more than mandated raise last year, more than 5%, and we were happy to do it, and we advocated for it, and we advocate for teacher pay raises every year. But if you ask your teachers, while pay and benefits are very important, what they really want is the state out of their classroom. And so I think the more flexibility you provide for teachers in the classrooms, that's going to want them to stay with the district, and we do our best to try to provide that. We advocate for reduced TEKS and that kind of thing, and reduced regulation in order to give the teachers more autonomy in their classrooms. And I also think, as my third, it would be professional development and leadership pathways. Leadership has been one of our priorities in Fort Bend ISD from the top all the way throughout the organization. And we think it's very important to support teachers and administrators in their chosen pathway. And we have tried to do that. I'll stop there.
Well, we'll let you go on because I have another question for you. I'm going to start back down this route here. What specific measure, we've talked about communications, what specific measure would you support or propose to improve communications with the community as an avenue to increase parent engagement?
So that's a great question. So as part of the audit committee, we are actually have an ongoing audit right now for our communications department and our communications methodologies. And so we're about to get a breakdown of what things we're doing well and what things we aren't doing well and how we can make improvements. When I was board president, I implemented board leadership tours and board literacy tours where we literally went out into the communities, to the schools, to engage parents as trustees and administrators in order to hear concerns. That has been very successful. We have expanded the number of committees and things in order to get stakeholder feedback and stakeholder engagement. I think we need to do more of that. When I was board president, we also started sending out a newsletter that hit every home in the district, whether or not you had a student in the school or not, because we wanted to get more transparency and more communication. Obviously, there are still many more things that we could do in order to improve this. And I would support not just continuing those things, but figuring out what ways parents want us to communicate with them and implementing those.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Jason, to you, what specific measure would you support or propose to improve communication with the community as an avenue to increase parent engagement?
Well, there's several different ways. This could also be a very lengthy answer, but we, as Mrs. Tosan said, we have listening tours. Okay, so listening tours, getting out in the community and listening to local community members and parents. We have a collaborative communities department at Fort Bend ISD, which is reaching out to build partnership amongst our community and parents and our businesses. Student leadership is another great program that the board has, which is to educate our students on our local community and what that looks like. We have our board leadership program, which engages fellow community members to teach them about what we do. We can survey stakeholders to just ascertain how they want to be communicated to. So this is a moving target. There's no single thing that you can do to make all this the best that it can be. So it's something that we're always going to continue to work on. It's something that we're always going to continue to work toward because we can never have enough.
Okay, thank you. Angie, specific measure to support.
Sure. Okay, so I'm going to give you a very specific measure. So for instance, a couple of years ago, they began what was called the CPAC, the Special Ed Parent Advisory Committee. And I know that Fort Bend went over some bumps in the road because they didn't actually use the committee in an advisory capacity. It was more like the parents came and the district told them information. And there's been a similar situation with a GT pack where you have had GT parents come, but the district disseminates information. So if you want to engage those parents in an advisory group, and I know this is very specific, if you really want the parents to be engaged, you treat them as the intelligent stakeholder that they are, and you actually ask them for advice. So I think building that trust and actually accepting the information that we want from parents will actually help improve parent engagement dramatically. And we need those types of advisory committees across the board with dyslexia parents, bilingual parents, ESL parents, and so forth.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Allison, same question. What specific measure would you support?
I'm ready.
You're ready. All right, go for it. I'll shut up.
All right, good. No problem. You know, and throughout all of this, the surveys and stuff that we've answered, one of the things that I stand firm on is that we have to meet people where they are. Inclusion facilitates communication. So it's really a simple question, you know, asking the community how they would like to receive information. As our students learn differently, our community learns differently and shares differently, and we should be open to hearing from them what modes of communication work best with them. So in addition to some of the things that the trustees have listed, some other things that the district has been doing, I mean, I myself meet with different community members, and I act as a vessel and a vocalization of their thoughts and ideas. But as a district, we've also incorporated things for the parents to do after school, such as like Roomba or Zumba classes, not Roomba. But, you know, parents in, and you can engage them then. You know, it's really finding you know, many methods of engaging parents and getting their input.
All right, thank you. I was looking forward to those Roomba classes. Reggie, something specific on the communication end.
Yes, sir. So, you know, as I communicate with folks in our community, one of the biggest challenges they, you know, tell me about is the communication aspect of how the board, you know, relays information over to the parents and students and community members. And it's been a big problem from what I can tell and what the folks tell me. So I know that you know, the Fort Bend ISD is trying. You know, we need to engage them in social media activities such as Facebook and Twitter and so forth. I know a lot of you guys, the board members, are on Twitter and Facebook answering these questions. And there's a Facebook group on. There's a group on Facebook. It's called Fort Bend ISD Concerns. I read that regularly. There's so much information going back and forth, and so many of our community members are asking questions on that forum. You know, that's a good forum to have. But there's got to be many different modalities. I mean, you've got to have the email access, the face-to-face meetings, and you know, social media and so forth. But I think mainly face-to-face helps, because then you kind of are letting them know that you are in the actually meeting their needs face to face, and letting them know what their challenges are and how to answer those questions. I think that having a sort of a coffee with the community, sort of a engagement, you know, once a month or so with the board members, I think that would be helpful. I mean, from that aspect, I don't think they're doing.
I think she just cut you off there, Reggie. I appreciate it. Denetta, same question. What specific measure would you support or propose to improve communications with the community as an avenue to increase parental engagement?
I agree with Allison on this one. I just mean that I understand that we need to meet these parents where they are. Most underserved communities, the parents don't have transportation. They can't get to the board meeting. So I'm all for going into the community to Hunters Glen, Quail Run, Mission Bend. That's where, you know, I would go. I would go to Mustang Park and meet with my Spanish parents with an interpreter. I would meet the parents where they are, but I hear a lot of talk about a lot of special population, be it sped ed, or GT, but I'm just so concerned that I'm not hearing anything about going out there and meeting urban parents and Hispanic American parents where they are. Let's go out there and let's meet these parents and watch how our district grows. No, we don't have zero felon schools. TEA saved us from that. Our schools are in trouble in those urban areas so bad I'm not sending my grandson to them. And he's 5. And I live in Pearland. So we got work to do, y'all. Let's not continue to sugarcoat this. Let's go out there and meet those parents where they are. And
Okay,
let's build for them.
Denetta, let's talk about that. Early education is critical.
Correct.
What are your plans for early education? What policies would you pursue, and what will be your strategy to achieve them?
I would, first of all, I would remove the barrier. When I came back into Fort Bend, I realized that they had what is called a mandatory uniform policy. These kids in elementary school were being suspended for not having a uniform shirt. And I couldn't understand why that was happening. So what I would do, the first thing I would remove barriers. Kristin has worked on getting literacy programs there in those schools. Jason stated that he volunteered at Richmond. We need mentor programs in those schools. So I would approach it, with a all hands on deck type of thing. And the first thing we would do is remove the barriers, because there are so many barriers that are facing African-American underserved kids as young as preschool. Now let that sink in, preschool. So that's what I would work on, removing all barriers.
Moving barriers, okay. Reggie.
I kind of agree with Denetta on that one. I think the barriers have been kind of an issue with because we're so diverse and as underserved communities are facing this problem, obviously. And with the preschoolers, I think that if we could make it compulsory to have a preschool education as part of the public education and not having to be called in through an ESL program or some other program, I think that would be a great benefit.
Okay, thank you, sir. Allison, what are your plans for early education? What policies will you pursue, and will be your strategy to achieve them?
Well, early education, literacy is key. It's kind of one of the building blocks for any student. So, universal pre-K, early literacy center, really getting that child earlier into the system, assessing and being able to really give them good support so that they can be successful at an early age. Also things like we have in our feeder pattern one of the string programs. So I always say, it's going to be my saying for this forum, meet people where they are, meet our students where they are early. So when we have them participate in these string programs, that may be that connection for that student. Fine arts might be that connection. Start that early off. We see a high correlation between fine arts and mathematical success. So really, literacy, making sure that we're looking at that whole student, giving them support from a social aspect as well, social, emotional, from very on, is what will give us the win.
Angie, to you.
Okay, well, I love this question. I'm a master reading teacher in Texas, a special reading specialist. My master's is in reading and language arts, and I've worked with helping English learners gain literacy and proficiency. I am an advocate of universal pre-K, which we do not have in Texas, so that's a little bit above the board level. But I think that one of the key pieces, House Bill 3 did initiate full day pre-K, so at least we are there for the eligible students. I think one of the key pieces is teacher training. I think House Bill 3 with the reading academies will help, but I think getting coaches in there, instructional coaches to model, sometimes pre-K, it looks like play, but you're actually working hard at literacy learning. I think we need to get that in there. And I was so happy to facilitate Fort Bend ISD's almost $1 million pre-K, high quality pre-K grant in 2017. And I learned a lot working with those teachers.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Kristin, you're on my top left screen, so I'm going to throw the early education question to you.
I'll take it. So we advocated for funding full day pre-K. We got the mandate, we didn't get the funding. So we are doing full day pre-K. I do believe we need to advocate for funding full day pre-K. I don't understand the barriers answer, because all children who qualify, who are at risk or have a disability, are eligible for full day pre-K, and we provide that, and have even partnered with private daycares to help provide that. Before there were reading academies, there was an early literacy center. We were working on that in Fort Bend ISD. Our early intervention center is the first of its kind in Texas. I specifically worked on that as a trustee. It's modeled after the Rise School of Houston, and it provides that early intervention and early education that's inclusive for our students with disabilities, so that they can be included in elementary school. And we are doing everything we can, and will continue to advocate to do everything we can to ensure that we can get funding for that high quality pre-K for all of our kids.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Jason, early education, what are we going to do?
Thank you very much. This is my wheelhouse, being someone who got a degree in elementary education. So I'm very proud that we were doing early childhood before the state provided funding to support it, because we knew that reading is the key for academic success and for early intervention. In fact, we are still only one of the few districts in Texas provides district-wide pre-K. As a state board member, I advocated for the state to pass full-day pre-K during the 86th legislative session, as well as work to pass Senate Bill 11, which was the bill that provided funding to secure our schools in Texas. It's not above the board or the trustees to work to push state leaders to advocate for kids to win. I think this is something as a trustee that we need to continue the work at, is advocating at the state level to really get across to them that early education is the key to our success in schools, public schools. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Angie, I'm going to jump to you with this question. What steps would you like to see Fort Bend ISD take to increase the equity of opportunity and experiences across the district?
Okay, so I was actually asked this the other day, and one of the steps that I would like to take is I would like to have stakeholders involved in equity walks. And you may not be able to do this during the school day, but at least at an environment level, looking at each school and having a group of parents, business owners, faith-based leaders walk through buildings, even students, and ask simple questions. Do the water fountains work? Do the bathrooms have locks on the doors that actually work? Because that's actually part of what makes a school day successful, is that a kid feels safe there, they have access to adequate resources, and then that equity walk could be extended in the classroom walks that that staff members do throughout the day, looking at instruction, that they're looking with broader eyes, where they're looking at the playground equipment, they're looking at the things that are posted on the walls, comparing one school to the other school to try to come up with a basis of equity.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Jason, same question to you. What steps would you like to see the district take to increase the equity of opportunity and experiences across the district?
Well, this is something that we take very seriously, and we've worked very hard on the past few years, which is trying to provide equity for all of our students. As we know that different schools provide have different communities and different students, and so really assessing what each campus needs, or what area or community needs what. And so that's a moving target, and it's very difficult to do, but through everything that we've done, starting with a profile of a graduate, it's about having access for all students to have equitable access, right? So everything that we do, and every agenda that I've helped build with Dr. Dupree as my tenure as the board president, has always been focused on equity and access for all of our students. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Reggie, to you, But again, what steps, and I think we all agree that equity of opportunity and experiences across the district is important. I think everyone agrees. If anyone disagrees, raise your hand right now.
No,
I don't think anyone do. But what would you do? What steps would you take?
I think equity is obviously very important, and all of us would agree on that. And then we should give every student the opportunity to be successful. So having the processes in place in terms of standardized protocols for each school, and compare, what the needs are for each school, to make sure that all needs are met across the board compared from one school to another. Because I mean, I still feel that some schools are better than others in terms of education and athletics and the fine arts and whatever else, and compared to others. So there should be a lot of time given in analyzing the standards for equity in the different schools.
Okay, thank you, sir. Allison, how do we increase equity of opportunity and experience across the district?
Well, one of the things that we need to recognize is that one size doesn't fit all. And so we really do need to be looking at, once again, meeting people where they are, finding where they are, and increasing the ability for them to explore their full potential. We need to increase pathways. We need to increase modes of programs that we put together. We need to, really have those harder conversations. We need to listen to the community and have those harder conversations about what they believe equity might look like in for their students. We need to just constantly be refining. We need to constantly be inclusive, and we need to constantly keep our eye on the target that we are the most flexible school district. We listen to our students. We are trying to meet everyone's needs and really just work towards that end goal of providing equal access for all.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Denetta, same question. What steps would you take to increase the equity of opportunity and experience? And you're muted. There you go. Oh, wait. Hang on. Still muted. Hang on. Who can unmute? Can you unmute yourself, Denetta? Juliet, can you? You're good. Okay, there we go. Technical difficulty.
Okay. As it relates to equity, Fort Bend ISD has zero interest in establishing an equitable situation.
Yeah. So what steps would you take?
That's what okay. The steps that I would take is what I've taken. I filed complaints as it relates to underserved kids being priced out of the CTE program. We all know it's illegal to charge those kids for uniforms. Did the board step in and help? That answer is no. Also, that's a barrier. How can you expect kids to enroll in CTE when they can't even afford a pair of the $40 pants? When I go behind their back, I find out the pants are only $15. These are former complaints that's in front of the sitting board, and they're doing nothing to address them. So there's nothing we're going to be able to do but fire the superintendent and put me in that board seat. That's the only way we're going to get it. They're not interested in doing anything. It's a waste of your breath and your time. Thank you.
All righty, Kristin.
Okay, so here's what we have done. We recently passed policy around equity, and we recently put in place an equity committee to ensure that we are taking appropriate steps. Other things that we have done to provide equity and opportunities for our early college high school, we'll tap into those first generation college attendees, our pathways and technology programs. We actually do have a committee that walks our buildings to make sure that all the water fountains work equally, and our bond program is put in place in order to make those improvements. But here are steps that I would like us to see us take in the future, and I've spoken about this in the boardroom. I would like to see us expand our flexibility in the learning models that we offer. I think with online learning, and now that we know how to do it, everyone in the district will have access to that good teacher. Everyone in the district will have access to that class that maybe didn't make at Marshall High School, Willow Ridge High School, Travis High School, Bush High School. And so it won't matter because everyone will be able to have access to it and to attend. So those are some steps I would take in the future.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, Shirley, thank you very much. Hope everyone's okay.
Everyone's fine. I am so sorry for being late. We had an emergency. Thank you so much for letting me in. My apologies.
No, we appreciate you. We appreciate you being here and understand. Shirley, I'm gonna hit you with the question here. And what we're talking about now is what steps would you like to see Fort Bend ISD take to increase equity of opportunity and experience across the district? What steps can Fort Bend ISD take?
I think the first, equity across the district. I have had the opportunity of working on both sides of the district. So, and even in this last Saturday, I had a friend of mine who has a student at an elementary on the west side, and then meaning her grandchild is on the west side, and another grandchild is on the east side. And I think what it is just pulling the curriculum together and making sure that everyone is doing, our curriculum is rigorous. We have great teachers, but at the same time, I think what happens is we're not teaching at the highest level on the east side at times because of the achievement gap. And so we need to make sure that that equity is established in smaller class sizes or whatever it may be. But it is up to us as educators and the school board to make sure that we are providing an assessment and an evaluation so we can see where those gaps are so that we can fill those gaps in.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Let's go. I've got a question from Facebook here, which is kind of near and dear to my heart. This last 6 or 7 months have been absolutely crazy. I don't envy anyone on the school board at this time. But what happens if there's a new surge or a new wave of the virus? If we see things spiking again, what are we going to do? Denetta, I'm going to push right to you.
I'm with you. I would commend the board on that. That has to be a hard job. That has to be some hard work that they're doing, making those decisions. I wouldn't even want to be in their position, but I'm just one of those ones that I just believe in shutting it down. I believe that we shouldn't be putting our teachers and our school personnel, our students in harm's way. I've had it for 7 weeks. I wouldn't want nobody to go through this, so I would shut it down. So the school board, I commend you, all of you, because y'all are making some hard choices on that one. So I wouldn't know what to do on that point.
Thank you, ma'am. Reggie.
That's actually a very tough decision for the board to make, and I envy you guys. I have to make those same decisions at work with all of our employees when we have a COVID case. We actually have a clinic in Katy that had 3 COVID cases from our staff that occurred over a matter of 2 weeks, and we spent over $10,000 to sanitize the place every time it happened. So it's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, I feel that we should go back to the online model if the cases continue to grow, keeping our students safe and our parents safe, obviously. I would think that the growing pains through the online model over the last few months have helped the school districts, I'm sure, with the board to kind of get a good grasp on what to do next in terms of providing a quality education online. But again, it also has to do with obviously the Wi-Fi connection at home for the students that can't afford it, tablets or laptops for those that can't afford it. There's a lot of things that we need to do, but maintaining a level of distancing and masks and all that is very, very important. Follow the CDC guidelines.
Okay, thank you. Allison, there's a spike in COVID-19. What do we do?
Yeah, it seems like as trustees, we actually lived through that. That was March for us. So, we do have a plan in place. We have a pandemic management plan. We have systems in place to pivot. I'm not saying that those systems are perfect. We're constantly refining those systems with community input. So, you know, one of the things that I would say that we would need to continue to refine those systems, to continue to remain flexible with what we're doing. No one has a crystal ball. And for those of us trustees that have gone through this sort of pandemic from March, we don't know what it's going to deliver to us. There is no rule book. One of the things that really helps to keep us, you know, fluid and moving in the right direction is having, you know, team members that work together, that put in the hours together, and that really we're interested in delivering the community what it needs in the time of a pandemic emergency. And most of all, make sure that we're covering and looking at gaps in assessing children's shop.
Thank you, ma'am. Angie, same question. COVID-19, what do we do?
Well, I spoke to my sister actually, who lives in another state right before this call, and she was telling me of one of their local schools who did have to shut down this week. And so I know that that's a reality we might face. I listened to the board meeting when Dr. Dupree outlined the pandemic plan, where we're either in green, we're in yellow, or we're in red. And I believe red is when you've got to pivot back to online. And I think during this phase-in time, during the past 2 weeks where kids are going back face-to-face, we've seen a lot of hiccups. We've seen what issues that the district is facing with Schoology, with Skyward grades, overcrowded classes with 50 some odd kids in online classes. But I think with each step, I hope that the district is able to embrace the barriers that they face and are able to overcome those. So then when we get to that step, and you know, unfortunate as it may be, where we have to go back, where all kids transition back face to face, maybe at each step we'll have learned some lessons where that will go more smoothly. I do think we're going to have to really work at trying to get more learner-centered instruction going online, and working and surveying kids about their mental health and well-being for those kids who are quite isolated in their learning.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Breaux. So as Mrs. Drew mentioned, no system is perfect, but we're always pushing our administration to plan as best that we can with what we know. At this point, the best that we can do is continue to listen to the guidance of our local health officials as we have, and as we phase into our face-to-face instruction, we are striving to create and maintain a culture that acts in the abundance of safety while balancing an atmosphere of normalcy and routine amongst Fort Bend ISD students and staff. That being said, we will continue to monitor the spread throughout the community, and until a vaccine is implemented, we will continue to mitigate, evaluate, and adjust for our community and kids. In the event that we should have to consider closing a school, we would implore the guidelines set forth by TEA for the implementation of that process, as well as listening. I know Dr. Dupree continues to speak with other superintendents in the area and other health officials to make sure that we have the best information that we can get. Thank you.
Thank you. Shirley, same question.
And I agree with everyone. I believe we first of all need to work within the guidelines that we have. CDC guidelines, TEA guidelines, number one, first and foremost, safety and security first and foremost. I'm hearing everyone, and I definitely agree. And I think that in the background, we need to make sure that we have the learning centers ready to go if we have a school to shut down. We've got to be stocked and ready to go. Do we have laptops that are available? Because did we repair those that were having different issues? Are we okay with the Wi-Fi? And I think right now, and I'm sure those things are happening, but to make sure that we are ready, sort of like being ready for the hurricane when it comes, that what do we have over here? Do we have everything that we need, that when this school shuts down, those students that need face-to-face, we have a place for them to go.
Thank you, ma'am. And Kristin.
So when you say surge, I'm going to assume that means in the county, which means we're looking at shutting down all schools and not just one school, because that's a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike other businesses we have 76,000 plus students that we have to educate. So we can't just shut our business down and have our employees go online and not worry about these kids. Fortunately, we have put together a robust online learning experience. Not perfect, still needs improvements, and certainly mental health of our students. The mental health of our students is important, and those are some things we need to work on. But fortunately, the infrastructure is in place. We can pivot back to that very easily. We have distributed well over 20,000 laptops. We've distributed Wi-Fi hotspots to ensure that our at-risk students are getting everything that they need. And in addition to CDC guidelines and TEA guidelines, we put together a panel of healthcare experts locally who are going to help us make those decisions. The protocols are in our pandemic plan, but we always have access to these experts and medical professionals who can help us make those decisions. And that's what we will continue to do.
Okay. All right, I'm going to shift gears with one last question that will go into closing comments. Shirley, I'm going to give you opening and closing comments when we get there, so we'll get you set away. So Kristin, I'm going to start with you. What's the best way, in your view, to address underperforming schools?
Well, fortunately, we've had a little bit of experience with this. When I first got on the board, we had 4 or 5 underperforming schools. We had 4 or 5 failing schools. And we were basically in our house is on fire mode because we don't want any students left behind. The way we have addressed it is, number one, with literacy. Students need to learn to read so that they can then read to learn. We are doing many interventions in our feeder patterns that have struggling schools, and that has helped immensely. We've also, we work to bring in high quality teachers. Someone said earlier something about small classrooms in some of our struggling schools. Well, we have those in place, and that's how we've combated that. We've also put in place opportunities such as early college, high school pathways and technology in order to give more career opportunities and engage students who have historically not had opportunities to go to college. Those programs have worked, and we are continuing to press forward with things like that that will help struggling schools. Mentoring programs are another area that we have put in place and through our collaborative communities, and we're continuing to push forward with those.
Okay. Shirley, back to you. What's the best way to address our underperforming schools?
Well, first of all, being in the underperforming schools most of my career, there's not a one size fits all. Mm-hmm. I would like to see assessment and evaluation. I would like to see a team. Back in the old days, we used to have accreditation to where a team would come in and evaluate the school. And I believe that with that happening, we could go directly into the problem. I believe every school that's low performing needs to have a data specialist on the campus. Not an assistant principal who does data, a data specialist on the campus, so we can find out where those situations are that we need to improve. A lot of times we just say, okay, we're going to do reading, or we have to have data. Data drives instruction. And then once we have that data, then we go into and we have a targeted improvement plan. That targeted improvement plan at times they're written by the principal, and the principal may not have the experience in order to really target what needs to happen. So there needs to be a team and support from the district. And normally there is, don't get me wrong. If you're in a school for improvement, that's what happens. But assessment and evaluation.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Denetta, I'm gonna jump to you. What's the best way to address underperforming schools?
In my opinion, the best way to address underperforming schools is to measure the student in reference to the Maslow hierarchy. We can't talk about educating this kid when you're looking at low performance school. The majority of them are coming into class hungry. They have nowhere to live. They have nowhere to sleep. But the first thing when they come to school, the teacher is like, learn this, learn that. I can't learn, teacher, when I'm hungry. So we need to start to address the entire child. And my work in activism is I strive to address the entire family, not just the child, because the parent is only as happy as their saddest kid. So I believe in going into there at the bottom level. Where do you live? Do you have your clothes? Do you have a uniform? Did you eat? And I go in and I try and help that child. Then I want to talk about learning. I can't feed you, baby, because I know you're hungry. So you go get you something to eat. So I just don't believe we'll start with the books. Let's not open the books. Let's open the heart, and therefore we'll see some changes.
Okay, thank you, Reggie.
So the underperforming schools actually have a underlying reason why they're underperforming, whether it is a need for more books or food or lunch that's provided to them, or whatever the case may be. But I think to understand and evaluate the weaknesses and strengths of the students, and then to assess and then teach. I mean, you have to evaluate the weaknesses and then teach on those weaknesses, and obviously the strengths are our strengths. So, but having the tutoring sessions and mentoring sessions and from the beginning, I think literacy is really important, because if you can't read and write, then you can't really teach them anything else other than that. So it's important to, I think, assess, evaluate, and then identify the weaknesses and then teach those weaknesses.
Thank you. Allison, how do you address underperforming schools?
Well, one of the main ways that you address underperforming schools is that you speak with the community members. We can all jump to conclusions as to why students are underperforming, but until we actually have inclusion from the community, we really don't know the answer. I know that we do work closely, and I've had the privilege to work closely with some of our feeder patterns that are underperforming. Our chief of schools stays connected into community members to constantly get feedback as to what they'd like to see in their community. I think that we definitely have to mentor different pathways for them. We have to meet them earlier and really assess them, with a variety of tools, not just the standard tools. We need to be flexible. We definitely need to address social emotional needs of those children. And we need to really identify what types of additional data we might need to support those students. So we need to have true mechanisms for growth, such as our community-based accountability system. Thanks.
Allison, you're so good. It's seeing the red and stopping. Very good. I'm pointing at the screen. I apologize. I've been on for a while. Jason, I believe I haven't hit you yet. How do you address underperforming schools?
I'll be brief. As I stated before, we are in the people business. It's what we do. So we have to check the campus culture. Culture trumps strategy every time. If teachers, students, and parents feel that the campus culture is positive and and student-centered, and teachers feel supported and listened to, then the campus culture will be one that is ready to address any academic or instructional deficiency. Maslow's hierarchy of needs must be met before any real technical work that is worthwhile can begin. Reading intervention, we've paid teachers stipends to have the best talent. We've focused on our K through 2 grades because we know that early intervention is extremely important. Our reading intervention programs, the local accountability system that we are creating right now to get a good gauge of where we are at in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Angie, what do you think?
Well, I think that we need to do several things. I think many people would be surprised that just because you have a degree in education, you might leave that university really not knowing how to teach young children how to read. And so we have to really, and I don't say that to offend teachers, but I've worked with a lot of teachers and they will agree with me. We really have to make sure our teachers know how to work with our kids, because literacy goes across all content areas. We have to make sure that our kids are being challenged at the appropriate level of instruction every day, and that may mean that we have some dynamic grouping within our grade levels and actually within the entire school. There may be kids in 1st grade who may be able to go read with 3rd grade. So we've got to be able to do some dynamic grouping, and we really, I'm going to agree with Shirley on this. We have to evaluate our programs. We have to look at programs like EDGE. I was part of the early literacy evaluation several years ago. We have to do the evaluations, then we have to actually use the data that we get from those evaluations for improvement.
Thank you, ma'am. We're gonna start with our closing statements, but we're gonna start I'm going to give Shirley a chance for an opening statement of a minute. So Shirley, you got 2 minutes. Give me an opening and closing statement. How about that? Tell us who you are.
Hi there, my name is Shirley-Rose Gilliam, and I am a 31-year educator with 25 of those years right here in Fort Bend ISD. I started my career at Willow Ridge High School, and I was a teacher there for 10 years, and then after that, from Willow Ridge, I went to Kempner as assistant principal, from Kempner to Elkins as an associate principal, and from Elkins to Bush High School as a building principal, and to Marshall and to McCullough as building principal. I am a teacher because of a teacher who touched my life, and in turn that I became the matriarch for the family as far as for my nieces and nephews in seeking an education and obtaining a degree. I'm looking right now at just being the person that is going to be the board member that is going to be the one that will ask at the end of the day, is this the best decision for kids? Is this the best decision for kids? I'm looking for transparency, trust, accountability on the board, honesty, honest conversations. If you say that you're going to do something, then we're going to do it. If it doesn't happen, that we'll just come back and then we'll talk about why it didn't happen and what measures do we need to put into place for that to happen. Assessment and evaluation of programs, and I definitely agree with Denetta, and it all starts with making sure that children have their basic needs. And so we need to find out what is working, and I believe in what's working, and let's duplicate that. If what is working, let's find out what's working, and let's just make sure that we continue to, again, do those things in that way. Educator on the school board. I believe that we need an educator. We need different backgrounds on the board. Everyone has strengths that they bring to the table. My strengths are leadership and knowledge of how school works. As an educator myself, I can tell the educator story. I can provide that paradigm shift. I've been there. I've done that. I know how the teachers feel. I know how a parent feels. I know what goes on in the classrooms. I know what goes on virtually. A vote for Shirley is a vote for kids.
Thank you, Shirley. Kristin. I'm sorry, I did not mention this, but Shirley is position 4, and Kristin Tosan is on position 4 too. Your closing statement.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you. Well, first of all, I want to thank the Chamber for the opportunity and holding this forum, especially during these challenging times. It's important for our community to be educated about these issues. I believe right now that experience matters, and my track record speaks for itself, I believe. My opponent talks about transparency, trust, and accountability, and as the board president, I push for the most transparency that this district has ever seen. I think I've proven to the community that I'm trustworthy, that you can come to me with your issues and your concerns, and that I will always advocate for the student and put the student first, and put teachers right up there as a priority of mine as well. We don't always get everything right. We always need to continuously improve. And I will continue to be pushing to do that. Accountability is a big part of what I think is important as being a trustee. I'm asking for your support and your vote to continue advocating for the programs and systems that have made this district successful and making it a premier school district that honors equity and diversity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Position 1, Jason Burdine.
Thank you, sir. As Kristin said, experience does matter, especially in tough times like these. We all need to vote for who we know and not what we've been told. As a team and a board, we've been on a long journey to build systems of excellence for all and access for all kids, making Fort Bend ISD one of the most innovative and leading districts in the state of Texas. We all know that we're one of the most diverse districts, or the most diverse district in the United States, which means we have to take time to listen and hear voices through an equity and access lens. Anything done well takes time, patience, and a solid team of leaders on both sides of the administrative side and the board side. This journey as a parent, a community leader, and a volunteer is my why, and I'm vested in the whole district, not just for one special interest and or special population. Representation for all matters. Please go to the bottom of the ballot. We are a nonpartisan race, but you're gonna have to go to the very bottom and vote position 1, number 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Angie Hannan is running for position 1 as well.
Thank you. So we live by a guiding principle in my house that, you know, if you see something that you think should be better, then you need to try to make it better. And that's what I'm doing. I'm running for the board because I want to be an advocate for our children. I think there are parents out there who perhaps don't know how to be the advocate, but I have the experience as a teacher and administrator, as a parent and as an advocate, and I hope to improve things. I know our bilingual program needs a lot of advocacy and a lot of work. I would love to bring language immersion programs to our district and improve that program along with other things. So I really am about forward progress for our children and our families and our community. And I really appreciate you putting this forum together and allowing every one of us to have a platform to speak, because it's been a challenging time to be a candidate, especially someone who's never run for office before. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angie. Position 5, Denetta Williams.
I lost the question. What was your question, Chris?
This is your closing statement.
Oh, my closing statement. Okay. I am an activist. I am no advocate. I am an activist, and that's why I need to be elected for position number 5. As Angie stated, she has a motto in her house. In my house, I have a motto as well. And what I have instilled in my daughter is God bless the child who has his own. I'm tired of Fort Bend ISD neglecting our underserved students. I'm tired of talking. I have been putting my feet to the ground, and I will continue to do that. Advocacy is not in my blood. Activism is. I have had enough. I have went to the board. I have tried to be diplomatic. I have the utmost respect for Jason Burdine and Kristin Tosan. They're awesome. I'm happy to finally meet Reggie in some of these, especially Allison Drew. I'm gonna give her a run for her money, but I wish her the best of luck. And as with, you know, Shirley-Rose, everybody knows me and Shirley-Rose have had problems, but I worked through God to make certain that I'm not holding on to that same resentment. So I just wish everybody the best of luck. Denetta Williams, position number 5.
Thank you, Denetta. Reggie, that comes to you.
All right. Kudos to Chris for moderating this event. Great job. Thanks to the Chamber for organizing this forum. I appreciate it quite a lot. As my closing statement, I would like to share what I've already shared. I bring a lot of experience in terms of leadership and quality of work. I am very passionate about a lot of things within the Fort Bend Independent School District. I mean, the quality of education, the teacher retention is a big part of why I'm running, and reducing the overcrowding. This may be a blessing in disguise with the COVID situation, because now we know how to do the online program. So that may be a good way to reduce overcrowding as we move forward, because I think it is going to be a hybrid model as we move into the future. And then having a voice for the community, because I think that's been lacking, and that's what I've been told, and I can kind of see that. So I want to be a voice for our community, every member of our community on the board. So we do the right thing, and there's got to be accountability within the board and as well as the administration to make sure that they're doing what needs to be done. And you know, I have experience being on the board. I sit on a couple of boards in Missouri City. I sit on the board at work. I lead a successful organization with work. So I'm very passionate. And please vote for me, position 5. And good luck to all the other candidates. And I think we all, whomever is chosen, should be able to do well, I think.
Thank you, Reggie. Allison.
Hi, so as a board member, as a first-year board member, the question I get asked often is, how's it going for you on the school board? And I kind of always liken it to that Lucille Ball episode with the chocolate covered conveyor belt going really fast, things flying at you. You all know that. So here goes. So this year, I've had the opportunity of being selected for Leadership TASB. I'm on the policy committee, the calendar committee, and the Teacher of the Year committee. I've had the opportunity to be parts of programs of choice like the CTE Center, PTEC, Early College, High School, Early Literacy Center, full day pre-K. and our new piano tech program, which I'm really proud of. So the answer to that question, it's difficult to maneuver stepping onto a team, getting up to speed, and starting to pull your weight as an integral part of it. But that's what we've done. And it's even more so important to maintain a cohesive team so that as we navigate change, we're able to maintain our momentum. So that is really why it's important to select experience and someone that is able to work with this team well in position 5. And thank you, Chris and Carrie.
Well, thank you, Allison. Thank you, everyone. You know, I can't help but being impressed by the passion that y'all show for this position, for our school district and our community. And it's tough. I know it's tough running for these positions, and Fort Bend ISD is the largest employer in Fort Bend County. It's a big deal, and I appreciate everyone throwing their hat in the ring to make things better for our kids and our community. And I appreciate you taking time to be here tonight. Voting. Early voting starts the October 13th through the 30th. Election day is November 3rd. I normally say vote early, vote often, but I'm just going to say vote early. I'll go into that later. Upcoming events. 13th annual State of the Schools with all 3 superintendents is going to be next Wednesday, October 14th from 11:30 to 1 o'clock. It's a Zoom webinar. Please join us. If you have any other questions on voting, and again, school board, cities, all down at the bottom of the ballot. Folks, get down to the bottom of the ballot. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's where the most important decisions you're going to be making are right here in our community. If you have any questions about voting, visit fortbendchambervotes.com. Thank you very much. Thank you, candidates. Thank you, Juliet, our lovely Juliet with her cards. Y'all have a great evening.